It was ugly. It was really, really hard because I didn't want to see myself in that light. I
Sure.
did not want to see myself as a manipulator at all. I want to talk about blame.
Ooh. I blame me for everything. Or I blame everybody else for everything.
One of the things that has been on my mind lately is that I have a client that I've worked with in years past that everything was this person's fault. It didn't matter what it was, and that they were constantly talking negatively about themselves. So, well, I'm such an idiot and therefore this has happened, or I'm horrible, I'm stupid, or whatever. And it was just this constant stating
It's
of
like
like
a,
how bad they are.
it's like self-deprecating, but not in a funny, humorous way.
Right.
It's in a, I'm
Like,
dead serious,
yeah,
like, this is who I am. I'm horrible, awful. How much of that is actually true?
right.
Probably none of it.
Right. And there's been a lot of, I've known this person for years, and there has been a lot of challenges that have happened health wise. There's been challenges happened financially, with their business, with their kids, like just a lot of different challenges. And it all ties into this. Well, it's just because I'm such an idiot that I'm making all those mistakes all the time. But then there were things like, because I was working with them trying to solve some of those issues and challenges, I recognized that there was a pattern there of not taking accountability for choices.
Almost like it doesn't matter what's happened because I'm an idiot. And so because I'm an idiot, I can't take accountability for certain choices that I have made that had I not made those choices, those things wouldn't have happened, kind of like that.
Yeah, that it's been, well, I'm an idiot. That's just the way that I am, and I'm going to constantly just continue making these. And so it's almost like it's been an excuse for poor behavior and not willing to take accountability for the behavior. We all know someone that blames everybody else for the problems that they have in their life, that life dealt them a terrible hand of cards. They were born into a horrible family, didn't have the love and attention and things that they needed to have their needs met as a child. And they've carried that through their entire life to where it's everybody else's fault for everything bad that's happened in their life. And there's
And
just no accountability for it.
instead of just saying, you know what, you're right, I didn't show up in the best way possible, and I'm sorry.
Right.
Like that would be huge,
Right.
for those people. And for the other people, the first person, for them to say, you know what? Not everything is my fault, but the things that are my fault, I can take action and I can make some adjustments.
Right.
I can do some things that won't give me the same results because now it's not because I'm an idiot. It's actually because I made some poor choices. And
Right.
when you take accountability and you realize, okay, yeah, I made some poor choices, but here's some really good things that I did.
Well, I remember early on in our marriage that I very much fell into that camp of that everything was always my fault. That
I can
anytime,
only remember one conversation where that ever came up,
yeah,
except for
a
it was
lot of them,
probably one conversation every 2 hours or something.
not that often. We didn't fight that much. We did fight a lot, but not that much. But yeah, I really did feel like I was in this tailspin that every situation was my fault. That if you were upset about something, it was something because something I didn't do. And we had some really poor behaviors in the beginning of our relationship
For
where like
sure.
there was condescension, there was manipulation on both sides. And that's it wasn't,
Mostly I was condescending.
and I was very manipulative. Like,
Yes, that's probably
that's,
better said.
yeah. But anyway, but recognizing that, um, and I guess maybe that's the perspective that I'm taking now, is because I did finally recognize, because I was doing that. Well, yeah, it's just I'm a terrible listener. I'm terrible at putting myself in your shoes. I'm terrible at blah blah blah. And so then it just perpetuated that negative behavior that wasn't what you were looking for. It wasn't the solution to it. It wasn't for me to just sit there and degrade myself. It was the fact that you just wanted to be heard. You just wanted to be seen in the relationship. And you didn't want me beating myself up so that you could, because I've recognized that that's part of the manipulation. Is that if
Correct.
I'm sitting here telling you how terrible and horrible I am and how I just constantly make mistakes and all of these things, then what that puts on you is for you to say, "Oh no, you're not terrible, you're not horrible, you're not," or whatever. And so then I've gotten what I wanted because I haven't taken accountability for the actual mistakes that I've made. I've only self-degraded and then got you to try to fill me up, basically telling me that, well, no, you're wonderful, you're great, you're whatever. But that
And
doesn't
you know
solve
what?
the problem.
That happened for the first 10 years of our marriage,
Yeah.
like all the time.
Now, when I realized that, when I recognized that, let me tell you, it was ugly. It was really, really hard because I didn't want to see myself in that light. I
Sure.
did not want to see myself as a manipulator at all.
And I didn't even realize that that's what you were doing. And I don't think you were doing it intentionally, like
No,
with
this was a very
intent.
subconscious thing.
Yeah, it was definitely not at surface level of thought.
No,
It was, one of those things that you just did because that's how you did things.
right.
How you were taught to do things or how things were done around you. I don't know. I didn't even recognize it.
And the other side of that too, that actually fed into it because it became a codependent
Oh,
relationship,
for
right?
sure.
Was that you took that role of that condescension, like I am better than you and I have more knowledge and experience than you. And they're, and like, putting me in that position or whatever. And so it was a very codependent, negative spiral of a relationship.
So I think for both of us, when we realized that you realized that you were very manipulative and I realized that I was very condescending, I think that was hard.
It
It
was
was
super
hard to
hard.
look at ourselves in the mirror and go, wait a second, what have I become?
Yeah.
Because I was never I didn't go to college and say, I want to get a master's degree in how to be the most condescending person in the room. And yet I filled that role very well. I, in fact, I probably didn't get a master's degree. I have a doctorate in that
Yeah.
skill.
And I was a master manipulator. Now, I did know that I had a tendency because of a couple of experiences that I had as a kid and early on, like in the first couple of years of our marriage, that it was brought to my attention that I was being manipulative. And I was actively trying to do things to not be manipulative. And so because I was aware of it, I wanted to. But this was so ingrained in this whole idea of I'm terrible, I'm horrible. I'm trying so hard, but I'm just not getting it, and I'm horrible, blah blah blah. Like it was so destructive to our relationship. It was affecting our relationship as well as, of course, my self-esteem. But when I recognized that difference of what it means to just take accountability for literally the thing that is brought up or whatever, like if I was being a jerk, like just taking accountability, like I was really rude or I was really insensitive or I wasn't listening very well, and being willing to just admit that and apologize for that with no negative self-talk, no added baggage of, oh, it's because I'm a horrible, terrible, no good person.
Isn't
But
that a
it's
title of a book or
right.
something?
But it's a matter of I made a mistake and it's okay that I make mistakes.
Correct. And I think that's one of the things that, both of these people that we have kind of talked about, both taking the opposite sides of the spectrum almost, is that both of them, like, there doesn't have to be a story behind it.
Right.
The thing that's interesting is, you know, whether you believe in the Bible or not, Adam and Eve, were asked by God, why did you partake of the fruit? Well, Adam goes on this long thing as to why. You know, God said, "Did you eat the fruit?" He didn't say yes and keep his mouth shut. He gave a story.
Right.
And
As to,
Eve, same thing.
right.
She didn't say, "Yes, I ate the fruit." She gave this long thing about why she ate this fruit. So isn't it interesting that even Adam and Eve fulfill their role as imperfect mortal beings of telling stories?
Right. That we,
Like,
I mean,
all we have to do is take accountability. That's it. Did you do this thing?
or
Yes or
not.
no?
Yeah.
And if you did, then you say, I did it.
I messed up. I
It
made a mistake,
it
and
wasn't what I wanted to do.
this is what I'm willing to do to fix the problem, and these are the commitments that I'm willing to make in order to overcome this or whatever, and having that open dialect or dialogue with each other that
Some people have dialects. We try to have dialogues. Those work way better.
yes, instead of
When I
speaking in
speak
different
in
dialects.
different dialects, she just doesn't get it. I don't know why.
anyway, the anyway, it's just been very, very powerful for me to recognize that very destructive behavior and that it doesn't serve a purpose in the marriage.
The only thing it serves us is keeping us stuck in that thing.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, whether it's being condescending, whether it's being manipulative, whether it's being self-deprecating, or whether it's blaming everybody for everything, it doesn't allow us to grow and to learn powerful messages from that experience of what there is to learn. I really believe that there's power in every experience. You know, it's like that verse in the Bible that says,
To be
all
for thy
things shall
good
be for thy good.
and for thy experience.
Yeah. And so when we take a look at the things that are going on in our life, whether that's at the very present or 20 years ago, I have learned so much from 20 years ago because I've had new lenses to look at those experiences from
Yeah.
20 years ago. And I relook at certain events in my life again and again because I know that those events happened for many, many reasons. And what is my next lesson to learn from that experience?
Right. It goes with the fact that of this belief that what it is that I do is tied to my worth.
And that
My
is one of the
abilities.
biggest
It
lies
absolutely
ever.
is, yes.
That what you do is who you are. No, what you do is something you did.
Right.
Period.
If it is tied to your value, your worth as a person, as far as what it is that you do, then if you are making mistakes, then then you're a terrible person, right? So that it's connected to that. Where and then also that if you're trying to do a bunch of good things to try to prove your worth, it is like under whose eyes, whose lens are you comparing that to as far as finding your value? You're trying to please everybody else, and you're never going to live up to anybody's expectation of what that means. And so it's that inherent understanding who you are as a person, as divine, and that it is not. Now your experience in life is absolutely tied to what you do, because
For
if
sure.
you are a terrible person, to if you are being rude or unkind and different things, like that's going to come back to you. Or if you are constantly making those mistakes, it's going to affect your quality of life, but it doesn't change your value.
Well, and the whole thing is, like what I do is not who I am.
Yeah.
And I think we want people to understand that that's not a reality. One of the things that I have realized over the years is because I've worked with, in the medical field for a long time, I've met lots of people who have retired. And as they've retired from whatever their profession was, what they have done is they've stopped doing that thing of who they are.
Right.
They think they are. And all of a sudden, within a year, they've had a heart attack because they've tied so much of what they do to who they are.
Exactly.
And the reality is that's not based in truth at all.
Right.
And if they would just understand their worth is because they're a divine child of God,
Right.
period.
Like nothing
Has
you can do to change
nothing
that.
you can do to better yourself or make yourself worse. There's nothing there that will change your worth. And just because you're a doctor, ooh, big deal. Or just because you're a nurse, ooh, big deal. Or just because you're a plumber, ooh, big deal. Now, it doesn't mean that those things don't provide value for others.
Oh, they absolutely
but it
provide
has
value.
absolutely nothing to do with your worth.
Right. And I think too that also goes when people like lose their ability to, like let's say they have some kind of illness or sickness or something like that.
Let's talk about my mom.
Yes.
My mom has always been
A giver.
the person who gives everything she has. She is service oriented, like to the max.
Yep.
And lately she's had some
very challenging
health issues. I won't divulge what they are because I don't want to break trusts. But she's had some health issues where she can't do those things anymore. And it has really weighed heavily on her. And I'm like, Mom, those things that you have done, they're not who you are.
Right.
Who you are is that person who just has maximum love in your heart for everybody. That's who you are. You're love. Like, that's your definition of who you are. For her to think
that she's
less than because she can't do all the things that she's ever done, that's just baloney. Like, it's Satan saying, hey, this is what you should think about yourself. Well, you know what? Satan's a liar.
Always.
And
always and
he's
forever.
always a liar. So every time we believe this crap that he gives out about who we are, oh my gosh, tell him goodbye. Get thee hence. Get lost.
Exactly. So that's my thoughts on Blaine, and that it really just comes down to being willing to be accountable for the choices that you make and being willing to stand in the heat of the consequences of those choices and being willing to make commitments and agreements of how you're going to
show up differently.
Yeah, to show up differently.
You know, it's so powerful to think about taking accountability of the things that we've done.
Yeah.
If I haven't shown up well in my life, guess what? I can change.
Exactly.
I have the power. It doesn't matter what I've done before. If I was in prison all the time for 20 years or whatever, which I haven't been, but if I had, that has nothing to do with right now, right this second, because right this second, I can make a different choice.
Exactly.
And I can choose completely differently than I have in the past. Just because I chose it in the past doesn't mean I need to choose it now.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing too, is that we have the ability to change, and we change by changing our choices, and we change our choices by changing our beliefs about ourselves and how we decide to show up.